Hello dear students, welcome back once again to Kamala Online Learning. We are back again with another informative video lesson from your schedule. Please be completely attentive during the teaching. Keep your textbook and also a rough book with you. Note down important points and difficult or new words as we go. This video lesson will begin with an overview which will give you an idea about the contents of the lesson. It will be followed by learning objectives. Please note down the learning objectives in your notes and try to answer them at the end of the session. If you have any doubts, rewatch the video and refer to your textbook and study material. In case you need further clarification, please mail your doubts to kamalaonlinelearning@gmail.com. This video is recorded with simple, easy to understand language and eye-catching graphics. We hope it helps you to understand the concepts better. So, let's get started.
The events or steps in respiration. Let us learn how the exchange of gases takes place from alveoli to capillaries. The exchange of gases takes place within the lungs by diffusion from the alveoli to blood capillaries and vice versa. In the alveoli, the carbon dioxide present in the blood is exchanged with oxygen. The lungs consist of many tiny air sacs and one cell thick. These are surrounded by capillaries. The dark red color blood flows from the heart through these capillaries. At this time, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place in the blood. That is, the oxygen is collected from the alveoli and the carbon dioxide flows out of the capillaries into the alveoli. When we breathe out, the carbon dioxide passes out into the atmosphere. The bright red oxygen blood is returned to the heart and pumped out to the body. As a result of gaseous exchange, the percentage composition of inhaled and exhaled air is different. Now, let us observe the chart for the difference in percentage of gases when the air is inhaled and exhaled. From the chart, it is observed that there is a difference in the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide when inhaled and exhaled. Let us learn the reason for this in further concepts. We know that air is a mixture of gases. It enters into our body up to the lungs and alveoli. The relative amount of gases and their combining capacity with hemoglobin and other substances in blood determine their transport via blood in the body. When oxygen present in the air, which we inhale, is within normal limits, say around 21%, then almost all of it is carried in the blood by combining with hemoglobin. A protein same as that of chlorophyll is present in the red blood cells, the only major difference being iron is present in place of magnesium. As oxygen is diffused into the blood, it rapidly combines with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. The hemoglobin not only combines with oxygen, but the reverse process can also happen to yield a molecule of hemoglobin and oxygen. The carbon dioxide present in air, which we inhale, is generally transported as a bicarbonate, while some amount of it combines with hemoglobin and the remaining amount dissolves in blood plasma. Let us learn how exchange of gases takes place in tissue level. Hemoglobin meets a different environment in the capillaries over the tissues. The tissue cells use oxygen continuously, because of which the concentration of oxygen decreases. It might be only 1/3 part of that present in the lungs. As the concentration of oxygen is low, oxyhemoglobin releases an oxygen molecule which enters the cells. The reactions that occur within the cells in our body are carbon dioxide and water are produced and the energy is released. This energy is used for different purposes. The cells expel them into blood capillaries. The term cellular respiration refers to the pathway by which cells release energy from the chemical bonds of food molecules. This energy is used for body functioning. All living cells carry cellular respiration, whether it may be in the presence of oxygen, aerobic respiration, or in the absence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration or fermentation. Cellular respiration in prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, occurs within the cytoplasm. In eukaryotic cells, cellular respiration occurs in both the cytoplasm and mitochondria. A series of chemical reactions takes place with release of energy when a sugar molecule breaks down. Each small parcel of chemical energy that is formed when the sugar is breakdown is stored in a special compound called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is an energy-rich compound that is capable of carrying energy whenever required in the cell. Each ATP molecule provides 7,200 calories of energy. This energy is stored in the form of phosphate bonds. The energy stored gets released when the phosphate bond breaks up. Justify whether cells of alveoli or lungs also need oxygen in order to carry out cellular respiration. Let us observe the pathway for cellular level starting from glucose. The flowchart on the screen shows the process of breakdown of glucose molecule in a step-by-step manner. The table on the screen gives the differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. After undergoing vigorous exercises, we feel pain in muscles. Does adequate oxygen reach muscles? What is being formed in the muscles? Let us answer these questions by studying the concept. A considerable amount of muscular work is to be done when you run 100 yards. Do not start a race just by standing on the track and panting for a few minutes. In fact, you need to start the race by taking little extra breathing. The fastest racers do not breathe at all while running 100 yards. The breathing is taken based on the state of training and on how hard you ran. You will pant for some time after the race until your breathing gradually returns to normal. These facts are similar to what we have learned so far about ATP. Unfortunately, this simple idea is not sufficient because only sufficient amount of ATP is carried in a muscle to last for about half a second while doing vigorous exercise. For this, let us discuss some other approaches in which we can produce energy first and then use oxygen. One approach in the study of this problem was to examine the blood of a person during and after exercise. The athlete taking part in the experiment has done exercise at the apparatus. For example, he pedaled a stationary bicycle or ran on a treadmill, moving as fast backwards as the athlete moved forward. Observe what happens to the oxygen level in the body. Some results are shown in the graph. Vigorous exercise lasted for 9 minutes, shown by the bar at the base of the diagram, and regular blood samples were taken and analyzed. One particular compound, lactic acid, in the blood vessel was found to vary greatly in its concentration, as mentioned in the graph. Graph shows varying amount of lactic acid in the muscles, where x-axis represents time in minutes, y-axis represents concentration of lactic acid in blood, mg per cubic centimeter. By observing the graph of lactic acid accumulation in the muscles of an athlete, we notice that while starting, the lactic acid in the blood is 20 milligrams per cubic centimeter. As indicated in the graph, 101 was the greatest concentration reached during the experiment. Suppose the trend between points C and D were to continue at the same rate. Note the value for how long it takes for the original lactic acid level to be reached again. Hint: extend the line CD until it reaches the starting value. Increase of lactic acid results in muscular pain. Whenever we go for a walk, brisk walk, slow jogging or running for same distance, we feel an increase in pain levels. This is because of increase in lactic acid. It looks at if the lactic acid was being produced fastly by the active muscles and then gradually removed from the blood after exercise. It is surprising that the athlete needs a huge amount of time in order to recover. We can explain this stage, that is, the sugar present in the working muscles was being converted into lactic acid, with a simple example. The energy stored in lactic acid molecules is less than that stored in sugar molecules. In a 100-meter race, a well-trained athlete can hold his or her breath all the time. During this case, the muscles use the energy that is released during the anaerobic breakdown of glucose. Thus, during vigorous exercise, we build up oxygen debt first and it is repaid later. In long races, athletes have to breathe all the time so that some lactic acid is removed while they are running. Thus, they can go on for longer before becoming fatigued or tired. The main cause of muscle tiredness is the presence of lactic acid in the blood, and if the body is rested for longer duration, then the tiredness goes off. We have observed that living things produce carbon dioxide and give out energy. If these processes are caused by an oxidation process, what happens if the oxygen supply is cut off? Suppose human muscle goes on releasing energy. At some point of time, the oxygen remains shortage. In such case, what can cells of other living organisms do? Let us find out this by doing some experiments on yeast. Here, let us perform an experiment on yeast to detect any rise in temperature, even in the absence of supply of oxygen from living organisms. Take a beaker containing glucose. Remove the dissolved oxygen from glucose solution by boiling it for a minute and then cooling it without shaking. Now, put some yeast into the beaker containing glucose in it. Yeast grows faster if it is supplied with glucose in a solution. In order to check whether the oxygen has been removed from the mixture, add a few drops of Digen green to the solution before pouring the liquid paraffin or wax over it. Thus, the blue dye turns into pink, indicating the absence of oxygen. Now, pour the liquid paraffin wax of 1 cm layer thickness onto the mixture to cut off the supply of oxygen. Close the beaker with a cork. The cork must have a hole in the center in order to insert a thermometer. Take a wash bottle. Arrange a way such that the gas produced by the yeast must escape into a wash bottle containing bicarbonate or indicator solution or lime water. Observe the changes. It is observed that the temperature in the thermometer increases. It is observed that the lime water in the bottle turns to milky white, which indicates the release of carbon dioxide. During the process of anaerobic respiration, some amount of carbon dioxide is released. The released carbon dioxide passes through the tube and turns lime water into milky. Let us learn more by studying about fermentation. If yeast and sugar solutions are left in the apparatus for few days without the supply of oxygen, a characteristic smell gets developed by a new compound called ethanol. The compound ethanol can be taken out from the yeast-glucose mixture by the process of fractional distillation as ethanol boils at a lower temperature, 70 degrees centigrade, than the sugar solution. This is quite same as that of aerobic respiration. This is a process of producing energy in the absence of oxygen. Attempt the following questions to check your understanding. To check your understanding. Let us discuss about the differences against respiration and combustion. By conducting series of experiments, Lavoisier came to the opinion that respiration was a process like combustion. In 1783, Lavoisier wrote, "Respiration is a combustion where oxygen combines with both carbon and hydrogen." Robinson also stated that respiration is a type of combustion, and this combustion is in turn the source of heat in animals. The main differences between respiration and combustion are shown on the screen. Now, let us perform an activity to observe the changes during combustion of sugar. Take a test tube and pour small amount of sucrose or glucose in it and arrange the apparatus as indicated in the image. Heat the test tube over a flame. Observe the changes. It is observed that carbon dioxide and water are produced and energy is released in the form of heat. From the experiment, it is understood that by combustion of sucrose or glucose, we obtain carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The similar products were also obtained from the respiratory equation. But essentially, the processes differed due to the following reasons. Sucrose or glucose must be burnt at high temperature in the laboratory in order to liberate energy. But if it happened in our body cells, all our body cells would be burnt. Once sucrose or glucose starts burning, it is difficult to stop the process. But it is possible in living cells by exercising control over the sort of burning of sucrose or glucose in the presence of oxygen. Generally, combustion can be stopped by using water while cells contain lot of water and respiration still it goes on. Let us learn in detail and understand the reasons for this. The production of heat is a characteristic of burning glucose or sugar, as we have observed in the earlier experiment. Living animals and plants generally produce energy in the form of heat. In winter season, to keep our body warm, we wear sweater, as sweater prevents loss of heat energy produced by the body. Heat is lost continuously from our body surface, but to keep our body temperature constant, heat must be generated continuously within our bodies to replace the lost heat. Check whether the heat production in the body is always same. By doing vigorous activity, a greater amount of heat is generated. For example, we feel hot after doing some strenuous exercise such as running in a race. During cellular respiration, energy is released. Some part of energy is stored in ATP. Some part of energy is utilized in our day-to-day life activities. Remaining amount of energy is lost in the form of heat. But in case of vigorous activity like running, we need more amount of energy. Due to this, the rate of respiration is increased. Thus, heat is also released in excess quantity, so we feel warm. If oxygen is not sufficient during vigorous exercise, muscles start anaerobic respiration, hence lactic acid is formed. We know that accumulation of lactic acid causes pain in muscles, but after having some rest, the tiredness goes off. Deep breath helps us to restore energy in our body.
Let us now learn how the evolution of gases takes place in unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, and also whether the process of exchanging is same in all organisms. Exchange of gases takes place in all living organisms, but the process is not same in all the organisms. Single-celled organisms like amoeba or multicellular organisms like hydra and planarians, roundworms and earthworms inhale oxygen and expel carbon dioxide directly from the body by the process called as diffusion. Animals, either terrestrial or aquatic, adopts different types of respiration based on their body size, availability of water and the type of circulatory system. Let us observe the tracheal respiratory system in insects like cockroach, grasshopper, etc. In these insects, the tracheal respiratory system has a series of tubes called trachea. This trachea is further divided into fine branches called tracheoles, which carry air directly to the cells in the tissues. Some aquatic animals like fishes respire through special organs called as gills or branchiae. In fishes, respiration takes place through gills. The gills are present behind and to the side of the mouth cavity. Gills are made up of fleshy filaments that are supported by the gill arches and are filled with blood vessels which give gills a bright red color. Blood is supplied to gills through capillaries, which have thin walls, and here the gases are exchanged. This is called bronchial respiration. Water from outside enters into the fish when it opens its mouth and lowers the floor of the oral cavity. When the mouth is closed, the floor of the oral cavity is raised. Water is then pushed into the pharynx and is forced to gill pouches through internal bronchial apertures. Gill lamellae are bathed with water and gas exchange takes place. Respiration through skin is called cutaneous respiration, and this type of respiration is observed in earthworms and leeches. Frog, an amphibian, can respire through cutaneous and pulmonary respiration processes.
The table on the screen gives information about the type of respiration and the respiratory organs in different animals.